Covered bike work. He's not that
With
far away.
COVID, we had all that stuff going on. So
Natural resources. Yeah,
even before that,
and then a lot
I
of the,
wouldn't sign up for a national company.
What else are we missing?
So you did
This is all we're asking.
Okay,
That's a full-time job.
Commissioner Bloomer and Commissioner Primo.
Did the
that's right.
standard testing.
That's right.
So it was on the computer.
Okay, we will go ahead and call the meeting of the Planning Commission of September 13th, 2021 to order. First on our agenda, oh, I'm sorry. We do have a request from staff to add one thing to our meeting, which is to do a roll call at the outset of the meeting. This is for our minutes taker, so that we can have everyone on record who is present. And additionally, I'm going to ask, sort of on their behalf, but also for the folks at home, that we sort of be a little more strict about waiting to be recognized before we jump in, partly for the minutes and also partly just to keep order in the meeting. So we will go ahead and do roll call first of all. So when I call your name, please say here. Commissioner McConnell.
here.
Commissioner Primo. Commissioner Cordill.
Here.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Here.
Commissioner Richards.
Here.
Commissioner Bloomer. Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
Commissioner Trezise.
Here.
And the chair is also here. So it brings us to our first opportunity for public remarks. If you would like to speak at public remarks, please know that your time will be limited to 3 minutes. And fill out one of these green cards and make sure it gets to staff. I do have one. There will be, I guess, 4 opportunities for public remarks if we're not doing our public hearings concurrently. 3 if we are. So you may speak now on any topic, or at the end of the meeting on any topic, or at either of our public hearings on the subject of the public hearings. So with that, can we have Craig Patterson, please? And please provide your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Craig Patterson, 518 Lakeside Drive, Mackinac City. I'm here to talk about our change with our site plan on Woodward Way, and I'll field any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public remarks and move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Trezise, seconded by Commissioner Cordill. Any amendments or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda passes. Next up is the approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes from our July 26th regular meeting. Is that really the last one we had? Wow.
So the joint meeting was technically a township board meeting, so the township board adopted those minutes.
Very good. Then we will take their adoption as gospel. Do we have a motion on the meeting minutes from July 26th? Moved by Commissioner Cordill. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Trezise. Any comments, changes, or additions to the minutes? Commissioner Cordill.
On page 4, I believe there was a typo. It was in reference to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Instead, it was BRE,
It should be BRA,
or even spelled out might be helpful.
even better. Any other changes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up on our agenda is communications. We have none. Public hearings. We have our first public hearing of the evening, which is special use permit number 21-19-111 Woodward Way, modification of plans to construct a multifamily housing development. We will go ahead and open our public hearing at 7:06 PM and turn things over to our Director Schmidt.
Thank you very much. So I just want to share this with you briefly. This was the previously approved plan for 2019. As you can see, 4 buildings, 49 dwelling units, parking in the center, access point here in the north to Sur Hall Drive, access here to the south potentially to Greencliff. Applicant has been moving forward in the process. In the intervening time, obviously COVID has slowed pretty much everyone down at this point, but they got to the point of requesting approval from the Ingham County Road Department, and became abundantly clear that this access point to Greencliff was not going to be permitted under any circumstance unless the fire department was extraordinarily needed it. And the fire department has reviewed this, and given that it's under 50 units, they are okay with the proposed number of units and 1 point of access. And the point of access off Sur Hall was not going to be acceptable because it needed to be a formal road end as you were leaving the public property onto the private property. And so the applicant went back to redesign, and this is the proposal in front of you this evening. Would have a formal cul-de-sac on it, meeting the Ingham County Road Department standards. You'd have the same number of units, same number of parking spaces. The change is that we've gone from 4 buildings with a mix of townhouses and stack flats to 2 buildings with all stack flats. That is fundamentally the change that's in front of you this evening. The buildings are actually slightly smaller than before, 52,861 versus the 49,288 that's being proposed here. They do meet their frontage requirements now very explicitly with the access onto the new cul-de-sac, which will be on their property, not on the neighboring property. The 5 conditions of the original rezoning from 2019 are continuing to be met. And just to review those for the commissioners that weren't here, property will only be developed as an affordable housing development using Michigan State Housing and Development Authority programs and resources. The development will not exceed 2 stories in height. At this time, the buildings have not changed height. They're the exact same height as they were before. Sur Hall Drive will be extended to create 100 feet of public road frontage and to be dedicated to the appropriate public utility. In this case, that is being provided with a cul-de-sac as opposed to the simply extending the road straight as they were proposing before. The remainder of the parcel created by the land division will be combined with an adjacent parcel to the west, so the division of the property does not create an island parcel. That's talking about this area right here. It's to the south of the cul-de-sac that will be combined with the property to the west that's owned by the same person. And the number of units will not exceed 49, allowing for 1 ingress and egress, as we talked about. We're still at 49 dwelling units. This is a relatively minor change from staff's perspective. It's still certainly meeting the intent of bringing a quality affordable housing project to the community. We are in the process of reviewing the site plan right now concurrently with this and identifying no major problems, as this was well along its way engineering-wise before this issue with the road department came up. And so staff would have no problem recommending approval of this evening. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here this evening. I will point out one unique piece to this. This part of the request to do multiple family housing in a multiple family zoning district, is the purview of the Planning Commission. The second part of the request, and why there's 2 public hearings, the 25,000 square feet is actually in the purview of the Township Board. The Commission is simply to make a recommendation on that piece. So that's the reason for the 2 public hearings. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Schmidt. I heard earlier when I said that we don't have any communications. We do have one communication that was left at our place from Craig Patterson of Woda Cooper. companies requesting that the Planning Commission waive our own bylaws, 6.4A, to consider these items on tonight's agenda as opposed to waiting till our next meeting. So if we could amend the packet to so note that communication, we would appreciate that. With that said, the format of our public hearing is that we get an update from our director on the matter before us, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to speak, followed by public comment, followed by commission time. So at this time, is there a member of the applicant's team who'd like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Thank you very much, Craig Patterson, Senior Vice President, Woda Cooper Companies. Thank you for this opportunity. With me is Bruce Colleen, our engineer from Colleen Engineering. Comment was made, engineering, back in February. We were deep into the plans, going through all the engineering. Notes were there. We were making amendments to the plans. Sometime, I think it was late April, early May, we found out that the road commission required this cul-de-sac. And then when it was a matter of negotiating the size of the cul-de-sac, on top of it trying to acquire the land to build the cul-de-sac, we made attempts, we couldn't get there. We presented two size cul-de-sacs to the road commission, and the road commission said it needs to be 150 feet wide. So at that point in time, we started looking at our own site, redeveloped the site plan, skinnied it from 4 buildings to 2 buildings, less square footage, as the planning director said. Height, by the way, is a little bit less than the height on the original plans. We're about 1.5 feet below that. I'm not sure Tim knew that because we didn't give him that detail. But that is, well, the detail's on the plan, but we didn't call it out in a way that was clearly visible. The only thing that changes with materials is we're not putting on shingles. The old design was shingles. We'll put on like a Duralast type of roof on the flat roof. I think one of the reasons why we're asking for a decision tonight is, as you can imagine, with this property, with this project fully funded by Mishta housing tax credits, and the fact that we spent the last 9 months or so in building plans and site plans and then hit this snag, we need to get into the ground, and the sooner the better. Our GC, which is Woda Construction, has been on the site several times, and there's a high level of organics on the site. There are some other issues on the site, and he's concerned that if we don't get in the ground before the ground freezes, then, and we're delayed until after freeze, we're just going to have a greasy mess out there come spring. We have to be fully built out in order to retain our credits, fully build out and start lease up by the end of 2022. So we request, if possible, if you could make a decision tonight, that would be great, but we also defer to your better judgment.
Thank you very much. We may have some questions for you, so don't go too far.
Okay.
And at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to Planning Commission discussion. Any planning commissioners wishing to speak on this matter? Commissioner Cordell.
Are there elevations for us to look at?
They're a little small.
Yes, they are.
Apologies for that, but I'm happy to let Mr. Patterson walk through them briefly here. This is the eastern elevation of Building 1 and the southern elevation of Building 1. So what you would see as you were in the center.
Okay, the elevations material-wise, a combination of brick and hardy. we tried to accent the entrances on the main entrances going into the building. Let me see if we can get up a little closer.
You'll have to get back to the microphone. I'm sorry.
Sure. It's hard to see it. So what we tried to do was duplicate as much as we possibly could our originals, but because of the type of building and the length of the building, which, by the way, the total lengths of these buildings are no more than they were before. I mean, we haven't exceeded the footprint in terms of length, but we had to do some changes in terms of the way the look is, and that's mostly because it's a different type of product. Before, we had stacked flats in one of the buildings, but we had townhomes as well, and we're just trying to distinguish the main entrances and give it a handsome look, at least at eye level, when people walk up, and then we've done some things up on top to distinguish that flat roof.
So what is the siding like?
It would be hardy plank and brick.
What's hardy plank?
Hardy plank is a cementatious type of, it's almost like clap, only it's a
Clapboard?
different width. Yeah, but it looks like siding on a house, but it's not vinyl. You know, some vinyls, if they're painted, they can look like, or they're colored, they can look like clap. But this is durability is very good. It's a little bit difficult in Michigan, but it is, you know, because of our weather here. But we still build it when the townships or the municipalities require it. We use it.
And it looks like you've broken up the expanse every so how many feet or so? To
I
break
don't
up
have the
monot-
answer, but it's done in a dimensional way to break up. And it's patterned after what we have done on other, I don't have the dimensions off the top of my head, but I'm sorry. But it is, I mean, it looks very similar to some of our award-winning projects we have in other parts of the state, where we pop it out like that, and it's aesthetically appealing. But you can see some of them are, well, like you got different widths there. As you can see, on the far right as you're looking at it, not the far right, but the first one has the two window doorways there. I guess those are windows, and to the left you have a more narrow. Then you pop with the largest fenestration, with which you've got 3 windows on the bottom, then a doorway, and then you match that. So that's the architect who did this, who designed this, is the same architect that did the townhomes on the previous 2019 plan, and he is with Hooker Young out of Muskegon. So,
Commissioner Cordell, just to add on to that, it's not a consistent in-out, actually. The width of those fenestrations back varies depending on whether it's an entry door, or whether it's a bedroom window, or whether it's both, which, to their credit, makes for a slightly more interesting
Sure.
Design.
Very good.
Any other questions? Commissioner McConnell.
I got a newbie question. I assume that the difference between a townhome and a flat is stacked. Is that the townhome has stairs inside the unit and the flats don't? Do I understand that right?
I think that's a good way to summarize it. You have 2 floors in a townhome with an interior set of stairs. Sometimes the townhomes will have a bedroom on the ground floor, and then up on the top floor they might have a couple more bathroom, maybe half on the. But on stacked flats, you have a floor and entrances. You have a ground floor entrance, and then you have a stairway that gets up to the second, and it services multiple units.
Gotcha. And the other thing, since I wasn't here before, besides the traffic changing in the new design, has the storm water management
That's
made
a
the
very,
drain commissioner happier or less happy?
well, we're still awaiting some input from the Drain Commission. But we don't anticipate that there's going to be a negative view. Bruce, our engineer, might be able to give some answers to that. But we do have surface retention now, whereas before we were underground. And with that surface retention, we've done everything that you have to do with the water in order to make sure it's handled correctly.
Hi, Bruce Colleen with Colleen Engineering out of Spring Lake, Michigan. So previously, in the earlier iterations, we had done subsurface storage in a manifold system beneath the parking lot. And given the space constraints and all of the unsuitable soils, there's a lot of organics on the north end of the site. We converted everything to surface storage. I don't know, if, Tim, if you can go to the site plan down in the or up in the northeast corner. We're able to fit a surface detention basin. Getting close.
Doesn't want to zoom out.
There we go. So, so now we're going to have a surface basin. It'll be fenced in for safety, but it'll have a controlled rate discharge to the Proctor drain, meeting all of their surface, their water quality requirements, their storage requirements. And so we'll have a manhole that's got a couple of different size orifices that'll let water go out over an extended period of time. And then the Proctor drain parallels the east property line just on the other side. And we already have an existing connection point, and we're able to make this thing work just connecting to that. So it worked out pretty well.
Great. Did I understand properly that it's intended to have water in it most of the time?
It will not. I mean, I think we might have a little bit in the bottom. And what that does is it deals with the first flush. So instead of this big toxic sludge of runoff immediately just going right into the system, it'll come in and it'll swirl around and mix with everything else. And immediately upstream of that, we also have a proprietary stormwater treatment system. So that'll deal with a lot of the oils and grits before it even gets to this basin. Once it gets to the basin, it'll dilute and then hit or discharge the Proctor drain.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Any other questions? Commissioner Trezise.
I don't have any questions, but this was a good project 2 years ago. It's a good project now. It's unfortunate you had to go through all the twists and turns to get here, but I congratulate you on your perseverance, if nothing else. Thank you. And I do like the way it's put together from a facade and viewpoint. It's more interesting than a flat front. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo what Commissioner Trezise said. This was a good project a couple of years ago, and still a good project. I think the biggest concern that we heard, if I recall correctly at that time, was the connection to the neighborhood to the east. They were concerned about the possible increase of traffic at that time. And so whether regardless of how it turned out, it seems like we're avoiding that this time around.
Well, the other thing, I'm not sure Tim knew this, but that was not a set roadway. It was an emergency exit that would be pillared and whatever, so it wasn't going to direct traffic through on
Correct.
green lawn or
It was
green
the
place or whatever.
bollards, right? Yeah, it was
But it still caused consternation among the neighbors that could ultimately be opened up, and so this takes care of that concern
Right.
appropriately.
In that vein, though, I do have a question. It appears as though you've got future parking sort of highlighted. I'm on page 37. I don't know what you're looking at there, but down in the, well, I guess it's to the east of the loop there. Can you talk to me about what that looks like and what timetable or what conditions you would see to have to add that?
Well, that's a great question. The future parking is per the code. It's required. We had to put that in. And we really applaud the fact that you're not requiring us to put in all that parking now, just based on the history we've had with our general occupancy developments. some communities, you go in, they say 2 to 1. And then you look at your parking lot and it's never more than 2/3 filled. Excuse me. So what we would do is if there was an overflow and a need, we would build later in that area and we build up the code.
From a staff's perspective, when I've had situations like this in the past, we would not enforce it unless we got consistent complaints about parking off-site, parking in the neighborhood, blocking cars, parking grass, things like that. It is an interesting piece of our code that allows this, sort of requires this by right, actually. It's a good thought.
Thank you. Commissioner McConnell.
Sorry. Is there anything in the design that would prevent pedestrian access to the end of Greencliff?
Well, there's nothing we built in to preclude it. What would you say? You know the topo better.
Yeah. No, actually, that right-of-way is there. It's traversable by foot. So, and I'm sure people have been making their way. There is an existing driveway off of Greencliff's, the right-of-way. Probably non-compliant, but and that homeowner has kind of adopted a bit of the right-of-way, but there's still opportunity and access through there. So there's a couple of standing concrete columns, but you can make your way through.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Cordell.
Just real quickly, how tall is the fence around the retention pond?
I believe we got it at 6 feet.
Is it
we
a
tied
chain
it
link?
into the building so that people can't, only for maintenance purposes.
Is it a chain link?
Yeah.
Can you, I'm sorry, I saw plans, but it was hard for me to discern. Can you just kind of address the trees and landscaping that you're providing?
Well, I wasn't part of the original requirement for the screening. Zoning requires for parking lots that face, out the outer property lines to be screened. Of course, most of ours is screened with buildings, but we've got a number of coniferous and deciduous trees that deal with those areas that are exposed from the parking lot. There's a lot of, we don't show them because they're small diameter, but in the northwest corner, up in there, there's quite a significant amount of existing trees that are there, and there's a number on the neighboring property too. And we are surrounded on at least the northwest and east sides by existing fencing that belongs to the neighbors. So they're off-site, not on our property. So we've got the benefit of the fences, and then we've done, I think my guys did a good job of coming up with a nice screening and landscape plan to fill in the gaps.
Okay, and you'll preserve what you can in that section?
Absolutely, we always do. In fact, we walked the land with the GC, Bruce and I, and we pointed out where we should. In fact, we're not going to go right up to the edge of the north property line where that wooden fence is. There's a lot of scrub in there, and I told the guys, there's no need to go in there and chop all that down. Now, we have to earth balance, we have to build the retention, so some will have to come down.
Yeah.
There's some trees in the middle that have to come down, but on that western border up against that other apartment, we're virtually not touching anything unless it looks like it's going to fall down. And then, of course, on the south toward Whole Foods, that's open anyhow, and it looks at that other retention. On the east, there is that fence there, and there's some brush in there, but in the corner where the retention is, really, those property owners in that corner, they're pretty distant back, and they've got a wooded area and a deep lot before you get to the foundation of their home. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape once we get done with the landscaping.
looks good, thank you. And it looks like you've you're planning on trees in the cul-de-sac area?
We'll see if they allow it. It's our goal, just to kind of break that view up as you come down the cul-de-sac.
Right. The road department or commission required the dimensions as they are.
The size of the right-of-way and the size of the roadway and the location of the sidewalk are all per Ingham County Road Commission requirements.
Will there be is that a sidewalk that I see?
It is.
Okay.
Yep, we're connecting, in Sir Hall, we're connecting the sidewalk, and we're providing sidewalk connection to both of the buildings, right from the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
We're connecting water main in Sir Hall, and we'll be looping that from the roadway, doing an interior loop, and then connecting to the water main for Whole Foods, and then out to Greencliff, Wardcliff, out at that intersection. So sanitary, we're able to, I don't know if you can see it, but on the north end, which is on the right, there's a line that kind of parallels property line. That's a sanitary sewer right there. So we're trying to, except for where our detention basin is, we're not planning to touch any of the foliage and trees to the right, to the north. But that's where we'll be making our sanitary sewer connections to that existing sanitary sewer. So apart from that, utilities are pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Commissioner Cordo brings up a good point, which is the sidewalk. And I think Commissioner McConnell touched on this a minute ago also. I see, based on the plans that have been provided here, that there is the sidewalk up to what appears to be the proposed playground, and that there's some additional sidewalk planned should you need to tap into the future parking that's part of the ordinance, as we pointed out. I would be interested to see that sidewalk connect directly to the Greencliff access, regardless of whether or not the additional parking is required, to create one continuous pathway. Can you talk to me about the feasibility of that?
Well, go ahead.
Talk about it from an engineering standpoint and then.
Yeah, from an engineering, it's feasible. I don't believe there is any sidewalk out in Wardcliff or Greencliff at all.
No, there's not, but
You're right.
but there is a pathway that connects from the road down to.
And that's still.
Right, but my point is, under the plan as you've got it currently shown here, that pathway comes up to the fence, stops, then there's 20 feet of nothing, followed by your sidewalk at the playground. Right. My question is there a way to connect the sidewalk that you're creating to that pathway entrance so that there's not the 20 feet of nothing in between?
If it's okay with you.
Well, I think what we need to, we'll look at it.
Yeah.
I think one of our biggest challenges right now is budget on this site. But I mean, if it's a requirement, we'll put it in. I mean, I don't know, 20 feet, what is that, a 5 foot or 6 foot?
That one there is a 6 foot.
So-
So it essentially, so you'll be walking on lawn or just pathway for 300 some feet just to into a nice lawn area, just to make so I mean, we're adding 20 out of 320 if that is significant. You know what I'm saying?
I don't actually.
See, there is not a formal pathway. It's just ground from Greencliff, Wardcliff to the site.
Yeah.
So, and it'll never get built.
No. What I'm saying is the pathway with the driveway on it, and there is a path, right, that connects the street on the Wardcliff neighborhood to.
It's just worn ground. There's no formal path. It's just.
Well,
Maybe I'm
does that mean there's
misremembering it, but.
There isn't.
does it look like it's used consistently?
No, not at all. No. I mean.
I wouldn't expect it to be used consistently
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
right? Because there's nothing on the property past the entrance to it. My question was, now that there will be something there, right? There's a playground there, right? And I presume that you're not going to close it off to neighborhood use should someone in the neighborhood
Yeah,
want to be
we would
there.
let
Yeah,
others
yeah,
use it as long as they
Sure.
are respectful, you know. We'll look at that.
I would be interested in at least making an effort to look at it. That would be helpful for me.
Okay. Would it have to be, what if we improved it in something like wood chips or something to just to define it more and not concrete, because you know with concrete, then I got to shovel it and all that. and,
Sure.
You know,
Yeah. That seems closer at least to
Okay.
something, right? Commissioner McConnell.
Perhaps one sort of fallback plan is to approach it from the township's pathway plan and see if that rises to the level of a priority on the township's pathway plan, and then the township can participate in constructing and maintaining it so that it's not necessarily, I don't know how, if we build pathways on private property.
Typically not on private property. The question would be whether or not the Greencliff one would rise to a level of a connection. I'm sure at some point it would. It's something we can look into. My initial concern is completely different. It's from a code enforcement perspective, just because it's being treated as someone's driveway right now, and inevitably I'm going to get a call about it. So, I think it's certainly something to look into, though.
I mean, you get a call about it, you know, they've got bigger problems than we've got, right?
No, I agree. Yeah.
They need to move their driveway is the short answer, but there's a paved path for about 2/3 of the distance between
There
Green
is, in
Cliff.
fact,
It just happens not to be theirs. Commissioner
No, it's not
Trulez.
even paved.
Well, I would think that we couldn't ask them to maintain a pathway beyond their property line.
No.
And that would be still quite a way short of getting over to Wardcliff.
Understood. I'm saying that, you know, there may come a time in the future when that driveway situation is, you know, or if the township decides that this is a pathway that we want to connect, that it is connected. And at that time, should that decision be made, I don't want there to be a pathway and then X feet of nothing and then another pathway, right? So let's be forward thinking about it and try to connect it to what is already an established connection to that neighborhood. So that would be my thought. I would prefer it to be concrete. I would over cement. I would prefer it to be an actual sidewalk. For the sake of consistency, you know, if someone wants to ride their bike or whatever, I don't want them to end up having to dive from, you know, a cement sidewalk down to full wood chips for, you know, a distance. I would like to see it done. I would like to see it connected so that if in the future the township decides that that's important, that we connect those things, that be possible. And the truth of the matter is that now is our opportunity to ask. You know, we're not going to be able to go back and ask for it down the road. I understand that, you know, I'm coming out of, you know, sort of throwing something up at the 11th hour here, but it's something that, you know, the township has expressed a concern about previously, in terms of, you know, making our community more walkable, more bikeable, and more, you know, pedestrian friendly. I think this falls in line with that goal. And so I don't think we should let the opportunity pass without at least talking about it. Commissioner Cordell.
About a pathway or sidewalk.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay, Commissioner Snyder.
I'm just curious, was this part of the conversation during the original approval process? I'm just curious.
So my recollection of the last time we talked about this, well, there was a road there, right? There was a road connection to Green Cliff.
There was a future.
A possible connection with bollards and what have you.
There was an emergency access.
Yes.
Right.
It was going to be possible to, in the case of an emergency, break through that barrier for fire trucks and
Okay.
get there. I don't recall if there was a sidewalk. I don't see one on that plan.
There was not, it was integrated, based on all the plans I reviewed, it was just integrated into the drive.
Yeah. However, I'm very pleased about this possible sidewalk, but anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure I'm following this 100%, but in the future, if there's actually a paved pathway that's proposed in the area where there isn't one right now to include this area, the township can get an easement to put it in. I mean, we can request an easement. We have easements across private property to put in pathways in the past. So I don't think by not putting it now, we would be prohibiting it from being paved in the future. I guess, I'm not a big proponent of having something sit there and not actually be used, or, I mean, it's gonna kind of, if I understand it right, it may kind of look a little bit strange if you've got a piece of, something that's not being consistent with, moving forward. But again, maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture, and so, I don't know, I'm not sure how big of a deal it is for the whole, the whole project, to hold up the whole project for it.
I mean, I'm not trying to hold up the whole project over this, right? I think this is something that we could ask for is all.
Yeah.
And from a cost, perspective, it doesn't seem like that big of a lift to ask for it, for such a short run here.
Okay.
But I certainly see where you're coming from. I mean, we don't know what the future holds for that connection. We don't know what the future holds for our school situation, right? We've got a movement in this community to reopen Wardcliff Elementary. Should that happen, this might be a pathway that students could use to get to school. And I see value in at least providing that as an opportunity, as an option for them. So I think it's worthy of adding as a requirement in the special use permit as we're approving it. Whether that's tonight or at the next meeting, that's something that I would hope to see included. Commissioner McConnell.
If I'm reading the plan correctly, there is currently a 20-foot utility easement there that it looks like there's a storm drain that's planned to connect between the cul-de-sac and the end of Greencliff. Am I reading that properly?
Yes, right there in that drawing, is that? Yeah.
There's another drawing that shows public roadway storm sewer in 20-foot utility easement. It's on page 39.
Yeah, it is our goal to take the drainage from the public Hall cul-de-sac and then drain that to the Proctor drain, rather than route that public storm sewer and drainage through our site.
So there's going to be a trench dug from the cul-de-sac to the end of that, to the drain, to the property.
Yeah, the drain is just off our property. Yep.
So it's really a question of, once that drain is in, what goes back on top of it?
Earth.
Yeah. So,
not necessarily, drivable or a good supportive earth, just whatever was there.
Any other discussion?
Can we go back to the sidewalk just briefly?
Please.
So let's say in the future there was a desire to connect whatever we have, wherever it ends, terminates, toward Green Cliff and beyond. Would the township then require other property owners to pay for the installation of sidewalk, and then it's an assessment? How is that normally done in the township?
I would defer to staff on that.
The only sidewalk assessments I'm aware of have been replacement of existing hazardous situations
for assessments. Typically, when we install something, I mean, the most recent ones I'm aware of have been self-funded or grant-funded. I don't think we would assess for something this tiny, to be perfectly blunt. That's a very small piece for a very large amount of assessment that we would have to go through. It's likely it would be something paid for out of general fund dollars.
So when you say too small, you're referring to everything that connects into the neighborhood, plus my 20 feet if we didn't.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's what Commissioner Richards was getting at, that we've previously, asked for easements from people to build the section on their piece that we need to fill in a gap in various places.
Yeah.
Commissioner Richards.
Yeah, I would say, it's one thing if it's listed on a master plan for pathways. But I think this is somewhat out of the ordinary. I mean, we've done it and, requested it if it's, connecting to, Grand River and there's a pathway there, but we're really not connecting to anything at this point. So I guess I'm opposed to requiring it as part of the SUP.
Okay.
So we would be willing, if in the future, through a grant or whatever, we'd be willing to contribute our portion into the grant or into the general fund or whatever to build it. But we would rather not build it now and let it sit there unused and have to be maintained because it's really going nowhere from what I hear from my engineer. Now, I can go out there later, not tonight, it's be too dark, but at another time, look at it, reevaluate and come back. But I really don't know the land that well on that end. But I mean, if you were to approve and say that in the future, if there is a connection north, that everybody ties in, we, out of our ownership funds, will pay for our 20 feet, some form or fashion, then maybe that would be a way to still meet the need.
It's pretty sketchy through there in that right of way. So I would think there would probably be some liability issues. Of course, it's road commission, and not necessarily township, but I'm pretty sure we would not be interested in sharing in that, in any kind of liability that might happen in there, because there's no lighting. And it's, I know there's a couple of manholes just kind of sticking out of the ground, but I mean, you can make your way, but it's pretty overgrown and there's quite a bit of trash and it falls off on both sides. So trying to promote pedestrian traffic through there until it's either formalized or someone takes ownership of that off-site improvement. I would say we should just kind of, if it evolves organically, then address it then.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Things to think about.
One last comment. I just want to say your staff, everybody's worked hard with us. We appreciate it. There have been a lot of creative thoughts. Tim, even though he's new in the driver's seat, was very bold early on and contacted the road commission on our behalf and gave us some insights on what could possibly be an alternative, and it's been very helpful. So I thought you should know that.
Thank you. So we've been asked by the applicant to consider suspending our bylaws to allow for a decision on this matter during the initial public hearing meeting. Commissioner Trezise.
I will make a motion to suspend the bylaws and allow action tonight on the special use permit, whatever number it is.
19111, I think. I've lost it in my agenda, but I think it's that.
29-19-11.
Okay.
All right, we got it. we have supported by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion on the motion to suspend our bylaws? Commissioner Cordell?
I think in this instance, it's appropriate, given the delay, and there's not the need for new information coming in. We haven't had the public remarks to digest, to sort through.
Thank you. Yeah, I generally oppose these motions to suspend our bylaws. We have them in place for a reason, partly, as Commissioner Cordell alluded to consider the public input, partly so that if we have questions that come up in our first meeting, they can be answered in time for our second meeting when we take action. This is something that, hearing your information as I'm talking about the sidewalk, and not to get hung up on it, but hearing what you're saying in response to this, I would like more time personally to think about whether or not this is something we should pursue, or whether or not this is a priority for the township. I could speak to our staff further about this. That being said, I will likely oppose the motion to suspend our bylaws, even though I expect that I see this project as a win for everyone involved. But I don't like being hasty about decisions like this. As not hasty as I'm sure this process feels to you. It's been a couple of years and the plans have changed a little bit. So I'd like to take a little more time to consider it. Commissioner Cordell.
The issue of pedestrian access, could that be addressed during the site plan process?
Absolutely. I think it's pretty clear that we'll be requiring an easement for this, that we'll have a term within it that requires them to pay for the installation at such time as the township's engineer determines it to be necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Not to telegraph the letter I'm going to send them.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on the motion to suspend our bylaws? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Commissioner McConnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury?
Yes.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise?
Yes.
The chair votes no. Motion carries. So we will consider this tonight. Therefore, it would be worthwhile then to have a motion on the special use permit. Do we have a motion to be made?
We do. We're all trying to find our way to it. Read it properly.
I don't think it's actually written out.
Yes, it is.
Is it?
The actual motion is not written out. The resolution is provided for you.
The resolution is, yeah, right.
Page 10.
And we're
I think.
just doing one at a time.
What's that?
One at a
We'll get
time.
just one at a time, yeah.
It's page 10.
Page 10 is the resolution, yes.
I want to make sure I don't read the wrong one into the record.
Commissioner McConnell.
Move to approve the resolution for approval of special use permit 2119111.
Do you have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion on this? So it sounds like our planning director has, or our community planning and development director rather, don't shortchange the title.
I'm still getting used to it myself.
Has got a plan to address my concerns about the pathways. So I will allow our staff to do their good work without amending this motion as it is tonight. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we will,
I was just going to point out that the
Commissioner
conditions
Trezise.
that were part of the original special use permit are continued in this as far as land divisions and the details that they agreed to, the two-story limit, all of that. So this does not change the restrictions on their building or their site. It just approves a different setup.
Yes, indeed. All right, seeing no other comments, we will go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner McConnell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell,
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Commissioner Richards,
Yes,
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, we'll go ahead and close our public hearing at 7:55 PM. All right, next on the agenda, now I got to do the scrolling here, is special use permit number 21-19121, Woodward Way, modification of plans to construct a group of buildings greater than 25,000 square feet in size. We'll open the public hearing at 7:55 PM and turn things over to Director Schmidt.
So as previously mentioned, this is actually a recommendation the planning commission would make to the township board. The township board has final say over any building greater than 25,000 square feet. Given simply that we're talking same number of units, slightly less square footage, and roughly the same dimensions width-wise, so sort of the bulk that you would see from the street, staff has no major concerns with this. This is actually, from our perspective, an easier change than the other one.
Okay. Would the applicant care to speak on this one?
Well, I think the planning director summarized it very well, and frankly, less square footage. We're still having bedroom sizes and things the way that we had planned before. So we don't think our tenants are going to suffer. We think these buildings are much better, more functional, and it's easier for us to manage 2 buildings than 4 buildings. So we're hopeful that with your approval and recommendation going forward to the board, township board, that we'll get an approval like we did the last time.
Okay, thank you. At this time, public remarks will be open. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public remarks and move on to planning commission discussion. Commissioner Trezise.
Well, I don't know how much discussion we're going to have. This was approved before, and it's a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. What I would do is again, move to waive the customary bylaw, which would require us to put this back for recommendation, final action on recommendation for the next meeting. I recommend we waive that and proceed with final action of the Planning Commission this evening.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Shrewsbury. And that is, for the record, our bylaw 6.4A. Any other discussion on suspending our rules to allow for consideration this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
yes.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, do we have a motion on the special use permit? Commissioner Cordell. Commissioner Cordell moves to approve special use permit number 21, to recommend approval, thank you, for special use permit number 21-19121. Do you have a support? Supported by Commissioner Trezise. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Commissioner McConnell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cordell.
Yes.
Commissioner Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Commissioner Richards.
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Trezise.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The motion carries. And we will close our public hearing at 7:58 PM. 3 minutes has got to be pretty close to a record. We're also suspending our bylaws? That's pretty good. All righty. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming back, and we look forward to this project. I don't speak for everyone maybe, but I think I speak for everyone. We look forward to this project. With that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is unfinished business. We have none. Our next agenda item is other business. We have none. Reports and announcements. Township Board update. Director Schmidt, what have you got for us?
Township Board had a further discussion of the MEPUD ordinance after the joint meeting, and a couple of changes that they've asked me to look into. I'm currently in the process of trying to finalize those for the following meeting. And the other thing that I would bring up is the budget was introduced at the last township board meeting. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, thoughts, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to put you in touch with the right person. I will tell you that we have requested sort of a down payment on the beginning of the comprehensive plan update for next year. And as I previously said, I will sorry, that's alarm going off. I will get you, the commission sort of an outline of sort of how I see this going, given that we're going to try and break the budget hit up over 2 years. But good thing is, you know, the census data is starting to come out, and hopefully by the time we really kick this off, we'll have good updated data that we can include as a kickoff to that plan update. Those are the two real big things floating around right now with the township board that directly germane to the planning commission.
Any questions for the director on those? Commissioner Trezise.
Has the township board, since we last met with regard to the Sparrow Heil system request, have they taken action on that? Absolutely.
I apologize. It has.
It's been a long time since
It
we've
was a
actually
July
met.
meeting, wasn't it? They did take action on that.
Okay.
I apologies. They did take action on that. We actually have a meeting on site with Sparrow Wednesday morning to try and break their construction cycle loose. They're trying to get some comments back from the drain commissioner's office. As I understand it, that's they're very backed up. They have a limited amount of staff down there. Road department appears to be on board. We have some items that need to get into Department of Energy, Great Lakes, and the Environment, but they're pretty close to getting under construction. I expect that Sparrow will start with demo here in the very near future and at least start pushing dirt around so that they can get the ball rolling quickly.
So I assume that means the board of trustees approved it.
They did.
Thank you.
Can you give, I mean, I know that I am asking about this every like third meeting or so. Here there are some updates on the village of Alchemist. Can you give us a brief understanding of what's happened recently?
So the township board has a subcommittee of members that have been working with the developer of the village of Alchemist to try and sort of nail down what the brownfield package looks like and what the DDA tax increment financing and any asks the MRF and all those items. And we had a very productive meeting last week to where we believe we've gotten to a somewhat finalized number. And what that allows them to do is go to the state and talk about how to fill the gap, because there is a gap. I mean, construction costs have changed dramatically in the period of time since this project started. So they'll be approaching MEDC in the near future here to try and close that gap. They are still very hopeful to try and get under construction in some way this year, whether that's foundations or finalizing the shoring of the utilities and road in Ardmore. And then sort of more formal going up come spring. That's what it looks like right now. Plan has not changed since the minor amendments that were approved this summer.
Got it. Thank you. And something else I came across it in my day job, so it's worth pointing out because it would have come to us eventually, is that the recreational marijuana petitions that had been collected are now going to be on the ballot in August of 2022. And so we likely won't see that for a while, I would think, until after that time. I know that a couple of the board members have expressed that they were waiting until the public has a chance to weigh in on that. And so,
Can't predict when we'll see it because obviously the legal landscape is shifting mightily. So, but that is the likely scenario right now, is a vote in August of 22 and then determination afterwards as to how we proceed.
right. Any other questions or thoughts for the director on the township board update? All right, how about liaison committee updates? Anyone want to talk about their meetings that they've been to? Commissioner Snyder.
Transportation Commission had a meeting recently, August 19th. It was quite a productive meeting too. So one of the major topics of discussion was the intersection at Lake Lansing and Tower, the slip lane there, discussion of, making that a safer crossing for pedestrians. So there's actually going to be a joint meeting between the Transportation Commission, City of East Lansing, Ingham County Road Department, October 4th. The Tri-County Bike Association, they've suggested a four-way intersection as being safer, but there are other ways to improve pedestrian crossings there too. So that was one of the bigger topics of discussion, along within that area, making there's a pathway there that's like cement and then dirt and then it disappears by White Hills. So yeah, that was a big topic of discussion. Commissioner Potter talked about in the MUPUD ordinance, perhaps providing a clear definition of what covered bike parking is. And he talked about concerns that he's seen with the use of carports for bike parking. And I don't know if Commissioner McConnell might like to comment on that.
Yeah, I think the concern is that without a proper definition, there's all sorts of things that one could try to claim as covered parking, and simply locking a bike to a post in a carport is more an obstruction in many cases than a solution. So I have not yet seen a definition of covered bike parking, but I'm sure one is out there, and it would be interesting to see.
Well, how timely.
Working on it right now, as a matter of fact. I saw that section today. I haven't finalized it yet, though.
Thanks. Sorry for calling you out like that, but I figured you'd be able to speak more eloquently to that. Thank you so much. Also, the Alchemist Road Bridge project, at one of our previous meetings, someone had mentioned a timeline for when those detours are going to be happening. And so it was projected that February 2022, the bridge would be coming out, and the northbound traffic on Alchemist Road would be diverted over to Mount Hope, and then north on Hagedorn and east on Grand River. So it's quite the detour.
It's just one side detour now?
That's what I heard.
One way?
I believe it's still being finalized, but that's the current thought, is rather than try and put both sides on one bridge.
Has anyone signed up to push the plunger?
Right. Could just push, I think.
So yeah, that's coming up. And let's see. Also there's discussion about implementing a Safe Routes to School initiative. So this is something that would be done in partnership with local school districts, but it's kind of been springboarded by a 5th grade teacher at Kinawa, Mr. Pruden. So he launched a biking program for middle school kids. He and Commissioner Potter talked about doing that in partnership potentially with Meridian Township. There are federal and state funds available to fund these programs and implement the needed infrastructure. So there's a renewed interest in that Safe Routes to School initiative in the community, and they were discussing that. So I think that's everything.
Cool. Thank you very much. Any other updates? Commissioner Cordell.
The Corridor Improvement Authority met August 26th. Unfortunately, there was not quorum, so they'll try again in September. Like in conjunction with transportation, they're in favor of like calming, creating crosswalks on Grand River. So let's see how that goes. But they were not able to act on that. So.
Okay.
Anyway, and there's something else, and I'm sorry, it's just not coming to me. It'll come to me, once I pull into the driveway at home.
No doubt. No doubt.
That left turn at,
I apologize. There's one thing
Yeah.
I forgot.
Commissioner Snyder.
Thank you. I believe it was Chair Bagnazzi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, who requested to have a Transportation Commission liaison to the Planning Commission during that meeting, and I don't know. I just wanted to report that back. I don't know how all that works, so.
You're welcome to stop by anytime.
Yeah, they're very welcome to stop by. I think I don't think that a formal liaison is possible under our enabling legislation, because we don't have like ex officio members or anything like that, whereas the boards that are established locally, the transportation, environmental, et cetera,
all can have all the ex officios they want.
Gotcha.
Planning and ZBA are pretty explicit in the state law who is a member. But we'd love to have them.
Yep.
Okay.
So the ZBA has met 3 times, I think, since our last meeting, maybe 4. Done a bunch of stuff, guys. We did a lot. Approved, I think, almost everything that came before us, including one thing that we saw here a couple of months ago, which was the car wash over on Grand River and Dawn. The site's changed considerably since the last time we saw it. Instead of putting the building on the short side on the east, it is now on the long side on the west, which allowed them to miss out on 3 or 4 variances and only ask for 1 or 2 variances. So the layout of that has changed a bit, but that was passed through eventually. And then more recently, we had a property on Park Lake. This was just last week. And we discovered that the right-of-way on this particular property was smaller the setback, rather, the front yard setback was smaller than what our ordinance requires. And that this was a persistent problem, basically up and down Park Lake on both sides of the road for almost every property on that street. And so I was charged with bringing that back to staff to see if there's anything that we can do to preclude 15, 20 property owners from being non-conforming on that street. So I'll be talking with Tim a little bit about, and have already, about what, if anything, can be done to take a look at that area. We had previously noted that the Lake District also had lots of issues with setbacks as it relates to the properties that were grandfathered into that, rendering almost all of them non-conforming as well. So big lifts coming. Maybe this is something we can talk about in 2022, but after we get done with the master plan. So yeah, lots of fun happening at the ZBA. You're welcome to stop by and check it out anytime you like. Commissioner McConnell.
If I wanted to see the revised plan, which meeting would I look at? What packet?
Oh boy, goodness, it was a blur, so it must have been right after the election. It must have been like the first meeting of August.
August 11, 25, or September 8?
It must be 11.
Okay, thanks.
It's one of those two. That one and the one before it.
All right, I'll track it
I
down.
think that's the one.
Thanks.
Any other updates from liaisons? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and to our next agenda item, which is project updates. We have 3 new applications, no new site plans received, but 1 site plan approved. Sparrow Health Systems. How about that? Public remarks. We have no public, so we will go ahead and close public remarks. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Cordell, seconded by Commissioner Richards. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, it's too bad. Off we go. We are adjourned at 8:13 p.m.